Up this shot here of the inversion crackdown by the Obama administration. It has 3 elements: eliminate hopscotch loans, no more pre-merger slimming, and no fattening of foreign partners. Frank, and then I'm going to get the rest of you in. Frank, can you translate that into English for us? I have no idea what that means.
Okay, the hopscotch loans is the biggest factor here. Take a company like Pfizer, right? We've all heard that Pfizer was trying to buy AstraZeneca, and it's still in the hunt right now to buy a company offshore to do an inversion. They have $69 billion sitting offshore right now in profits that are U.S. profits. But the way our tax law is structured, they don't have to pay taxes on those profits until they are brought back to the United States. Under an inversion, those profits can get loaned to the new foreign parent company. And through that, it can then get brought back to America and not be taxed at all. So they would avoid taxes at, say, at the 30%, 35% rate on $69 billion. We're talking big bucks.
Jillian, okay, so we're talking about avoidance of taxes, tax inversions. The official corporate tax rate is 35%, but we know corporations don't pay 35%. The effective rate is much lower. Well, what is all the hoopla? They don't even pay the full 35%. Why are they doing all of it?
It's actually a pretty legitimate hoopla, and if you factor in state taxes, it's actually closer to 40%. And that's a problem because whether or not
some estimates go as low as 13, 14%.
Whether or not they pay it, we do have the highest corporate tax rate in the developed world. And with the inversion thing, we tax profits earned abroad. There are only like 5 other industrial countries in the world that do that. So I think we really need to be asking ourselves here, not how do we game the system, how do we change tax code to trap companies in, it's how do we change the tax system so that they want to be here, so that there's not that incentive for them to do it. I mean, with Apple, you know, like it or not, they weren't doing anything illegal. They were doing things, you know, submitting, I've heard 2 feet of paperwork to the IRS every year. This has been a long-term thing. I think this needs to be about systematic change, not about calling companies out because we don't like how they're dealing with the existing tax code and abiding by the law.
All right, so we've been talking a lot of legalese here. When we come back, I want to get Christina and Peter in on this and ask the question, should we be morally outraged? More Nerdland just in a minute. Here of a Chamber of Commerce ad and get your response to the question about how difficult might it be to change our tax code. Let's take a listen.
There are some who want American employers and their workers to go backwards. They want to go back in time and retroactively rewrite the tax laws so they can impose taxes that weren't owed in the first place on American businesses. It sounds crazy, but it's true.
It sounds crazy, but it's true. I mean, these poor corporations.
Well, I think here's the deal. So I wouldn't argue that there needs to be tax reform. Our tax policy is so complicated. I think it's bad that companies have to hire that many attorneys to be able to negotiate it. That said, this is something that Congress needs to change, and President Obama has tried to change it by executive action. I don't think that's really fair. I think it needs to be something that's done congressionally, that follows the system, and that's not how it's being done. I mean, you got Jack Lew saying at first that he didn't think that he had the legal authority to do it, then turning around and doing it. And I've tried to find Office of Legal Counsel memos for it, submitted a records request, and I can't find them. So I want to know what the legal basis for doing this through executive action is compared to Congress. And if Congress is to do it, I think they just got to man up.
Okay. Oh, and woman up too. Maybe?
And woman up too.
Frank, how hard is this going to be for? Look, this Congress says it's gridlocked. What can we do really to change the tax code?
We've got to elect the right folks to office, and they're the ones who are going to have to change the tax code. But people out there, your listeners, your viewers, have got to get incensed and enraged and engaged.
I mean, I think to come full circle, though, you ask, should there be moral outrage? There clearly is moral outrage because we're having a conversation about innovation in the tax code instead of innovation where Apple's supposed to be giving us innovation, where Starbucks is supposed to be giving us innovation. They're supposed to be giving us great products and services that excite us. Instead, it seems like they're spending an awful lot of time with their lobbyists and their accountants gaming the system. That's the political conversation that we're having now.
Thank you. So much more to say about this, but I want to thank all of you. Thank you to Peter Goodman, Jillian Melchior, and Frank Clemente. Christina will be back in the next hour. Coming up next, protecting the president.